Um, thanks again for the opportunity to share almost a report card of what we've done in the last 2 years. So Meher set this up quite nicely, actually, where she articulated the problem that exists in North India. So two broad cropping seasons. Rice is what's in fall between June to October, and what's interesting is that given that there's a desire to take a second crop, which happens in a short span, about 30 days or less, there is a strong attraction to consider burning the stubble. And why is that the case? Is because a vast majority of farmers are small and marginal, which means that they have 5 acres of less as their area. And the other unfortunate thing is that therefore they are unable to afford the equipment that you need to take care of the stubble. And stubble disposal typically happens in two ways. One is called in situ, which is where you mulch the stubble into the soil. Second is ex situ, where you take the stubble and convert it to bales and then have downstream applications, very similar to, again, what Meher described. Substantial impact to not just the soil quality, but farm productivity as well, because it raises the soil temperature, and also has approximately a 15 million disability adjusted life year impact in North India. So that's, if you assume that an average Indian lives for 75 years, which is not really the case, we're still talking about 200,000 people dying every year as a result. So that's the scale of the problem. And obviously there is productivity loss because they close schools sometimes and the flights get delayed, etc., etc. So that's really the scale of the problem. Punjab accounts for a vast majority. Haryana and Uttar Pradesh are the other two, and more recently Madhya Pradesh as well. These are big states in North India. Essentially the food production hub of the country. So our intervention, we started out in 21, where we met farmers, tried to understand what the problems were and what it is that they were facing and how could this be solved. We started with a pilot in 6 villages, got stubble burning down by 69% in 22, which is when I came to speak to you guys last year. The intervention had 3 components. One was a platform, think of it as Uber for farmers, that allowed farmers who had the equipment to share their equipment with their fellow farmers, obviously at a cost. And the resultant stubble would be sold to industry and others, and it would pay for the cost of the removal. Second, and probably the biggest part of the intervention was a door-to-door campaign that took, that basically educated farmers to say, don't burn the stubble. You now have an alternate use of your stubble into, either a biofertilizer or a compressed biogas and so on. And then the third one was actually we actually seeded this program with a few equipment that, that essentially made this happen. Last year saw a scale up by 111%. So went from 6 villages to 666, 1.2 million acres, roughly 150,000 farmers. Similar model, with the exception that now support, to farmers was omni-channel. So you could use an app, you could go to the website, you could make a phone call, you could send a WhatsApp message, you could send a WhatsApp voice message, right? So multiple ways, essentially how to make it frictionless for farmers to seek assistance. Working very closely with each and every district administrator. So India has what are called collectors in each district. So working very closely with them, customizing this intervention in each district to the local requirements. And very importantly, this year, which was different, was working with the downstream industrial users to say how could we make this stubble available to industrial users for them to deploy. So Indian Oil, which is the largest oil company in India, has an ethanol plant nearby in a location called Panipat. So almost 20% of the feedstock that was utilized by them came from this particular program, and so on. So that was the intervention, and 55% reduction in stubble burning incidents. And by the way, these are tracked through satellite data. It's published on a daily basis, so anybody can verify what the reduction was. So anxious moments there, a few days, but overall, reduction of 55%. So what's the plan this year? This year, we've taken on the bull by the horn, going into Punjab, which is the biggest culprit, so to speak, but also the biggest potential, solution. So starting with in a district called Patiala, so a pilot program there, and working with World Bank in Uttar Pradesh and hopefully in Madhya Pradesh as well, to make this platform available to further improve mechanization across farms and to bring in sustainable practices going forward. There's also an interesting pilot with what's called NABARD, which is a rural development bank, to disseminate fertilizer through drones, which they claim will reduce water use by 95% and fertilizer use by 50%. We'll see how that goes. But essentially, the biggest focus going forward is to say, if we don't burn this stubble, how do I, so A, continue to reduce that, but then to whatever extent the stubble is not burned, looking for ways to deploy that stubble into productive use. So again, probably the biggest consequential use of this is going to be for compressed biogas, which it can easily generate. And ethanol could be another one. Interesting thing about the ethanol ecosystem, which we've also looked at this year, is there is a potential pathway to sustainable aviation fuel via ethanol, what's called the ATJ pathway. And India is coming up with so India has an ambition to utilize SAF for 5% of international flights by 2030. So the mandate is, well, it's not a mandate yet. The goal is 1% by 27, 2% by 28, and 5% by 2030. It is likely to become a mandate. If all goes well, the stubble that is not burnt, and even if you take 25% of that stubble and repurpose it to SAF, it can produce 10 times what India is going to need in 2030, which obviously makes for an export opportunity or to further decarbonize domestic flights as well. We think the economics are within striking range. About 30% or so is what we can get to. But with the right kind of collaboration and incentives, we believe that gap can also be bridged. So that's my report card for 23. I hope to be back next year. If it goes well, I'll be standing, otherwise I'll be in a corner somewhere, trying to hide from all of you. So yeah, thank you.